Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Profit Minds podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch, creator of the Profit Minds Growth System, a unique blend of profit growth, productivity acceleration, and building robust business process for scale. In every episode, I interview entrepreneurs and small business owners from around the world with a unique story to tell. You can find the show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and more. Welcome, Randi.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk to you and share with your audience.
So, what is it that you do for these small business owners that's so important?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at Sagacity Legal, which is my own firm, what I like to say is we turn ideas into profit. And what that means is that entrepreneurs work really, really hard, whether it's to create a brand, content, inventions, so many things that entrepreneurs create for their own uniqueness. That's their value. That's how they succeed. And many don't know how or don't know that they need to protect it. So our job is something called intellectual property, which many may know or have heard of, and some may not have. And we work with small businesses. We focus on small businesses and entrepreneurs and creators to protect it. And that could be patenting an invention, that could be trademarking a brand, or that could be copywriting content, even videos like this.
So you could actually copyright something like this?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, just to give you a little copyright lesson, copyright ownership happens upon creation. So when you finish this video, Profit Minds owns the copyright. It's not registered, but you actually have legal ownership.
Well, that's good to know. So tell me your story. How did you get to this place where you realized that small business owners need this kind of help?
That's a great question. And I know we only have a short time, so I won't start back at kindergarten. But
if it's relevant, please share.
It's not. Many of us are in this situation where we find that our professional life changes, even our personal life too, changes over time. And that's really what happened with me. Over the years, I went from being an engineering management, becoming a patent attorney, managing intellectual property, all in a big corporate America type atmosphere. So I was learning and learning. And then I started working for a good half a dozen years with small businesses that big corporate America acquired. And they could be 3 people, or they could be 3,000 people, and they could be 3 years old, or they could be 30 years old. But I found one kind of common thread is that many did not have their intellectual property protected. Some did, but maybe not properly, or maybe not enough. And I realized that all of this knowledge that inside the big corporations is just everyday life, small businesses and entrepreneurs may not be aware, may think it's just something they can't afford, or are just going so fast that they don't even know where to get the help. So life synced up, and I said, okay, I'm going to try this. And I watched the quotes, retired. Nobody understood that when I said, well, it's just in quotes that I retired. And I launched Sagacity Legal with exactly that goal in mind, to help those people who may not know what they need.
Yeah, that's very interesting because, of course, I grew up in corporate and I retired
Yeah.
to form this, right? You know,
Right.
and so I know exactly where you're coming from. It's a passion to want to help other people and to bring those skills that you developed in your corporate life to the small business owner. Because again, it's something that, you know, I worked at a couple of little companies that didn't really do a whole lot with patenting, IBM and Intel.
Oh, not at
Probably
all.
the top two patent organizations in the world. Anyway, so they had patent programs, and I would meet with IP attorneys. I had engineering friends who turned into patent attorneys, and so went down the same path that you did. Fascinating business, and back and forth with the attorneys on how the patent language has to be just so. And so that skill that you bring, really critical. I mean, it's something that I didn't really understand as as an engineer, physicist working at these big companies. I didn't understand the skill that's required to do that. So it's great that you're able to make that available and affordable to the small business owner. Because I think, talk a little bit about the cost of not doing this, because I think you're right. Most small business owners say, well, I can't afford that. It's expensive.
Absolutely. And, I always say I'm not a litigator. So my goal is to help people stay out of court, stay out of being sued, keep the lawyers away. And in fact, if somebody is sued or needs to, I'm going to pass them off to a different law firm. I don't do that. So I'm not trying to profit from that, which is a little bit different than maybe some firms. Not that came out as being a little derogatory. I didn't mean it to be. But what happens is you're right. I have two types of clients. I have the clients who come to me ahead of time. Somehow they figured out that either their brand needs to be trademarked, they have this great, maybe training material or other material that they are afraid is going to be copied, or they have, this amazing invention and they're just not sure what to do with it. And when they come to me, one of the things that I do, and I'm not alone in this model, but I know that it works, is we always talk about budget versus risk versus value. And all my IP work is fixed fee. So I can say to you or to a client or someone that's not sure what to do, okay, here's your budget. If we do this, this is what it's going to cost. And here's the risk if we don't do it. And the risk can be so huge. I've seen businesses who are ready to launch a product, who won awards for that product in upcoming shows. So it had been, identified, who had warehouses full of that product, and then were hit with a cease and desist from a big patent owner. Wow. And in an example like that, the cost of the research and development, the cost of the manufacturing, the cost of the product, that in a case like that had to be just thrown away, and they had to start over, from it. I mean, and that's a real world example. That's not made up. So, I've had other clients with trademarks. They thought they had this great name, didn't think anything of it, and all of a sudden somebody comes after them. They hadn't thought about trademarking their brand. So the cost involved, IP litigation is hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. It's, even if you win, you have attorney's fees in the hundreds of thousands of dollars possibly. So the cost of not doing it greatly overrides the cost of doing it.
Yeah. Wow. So talk a little bit more about the kinds of things that you do. You talked about trademarks. When would be a good time for somebody to come to you with a question about, their branding and what the value of the trademark and what's the process there?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people don't come to me until they've been established for a while and using the brand. And one of the problems is they're presuming it's available. So, I'll pick on you. Protivity, oh, it sounds great. It runs off the tongue. I'll just start using it. And I'm picking on you because we are working together on your
yes.
brand. But, and so, a couple of years, you launch this, you're doing all this work and everything seems fine until one of two things happens. Somebody else files first. And then even if you come to me, the trademark office, and by the way, patents are the same way. It's a first to file in the US. So if you hadn't filed, and just were using it and said, oh, no, I got a few extra bucks, I'll go ahead and file now. Someone else liked it and filed first, they're the presumed owner. Now you're stuck, right? Or you haven't checked it and somebody else has the trademark and you get a cease and desist letter. And, and the settlements in those are typically in the tens of thousands of dollars, the 5 digits. So people should come to me ideally when they're brainstorming. I've got this great idea. I'm going to launch this company called Profit Minds. Is it available, Randy? And do the clearance before you totally launch. That's the ideal. That's the ideal.
Okay. Great. And what about the patent process? And I know, because we're working together on my trademark, I know it's months from the time that you file to the time that you actually, get the trademark, even before they get any response back, right? And I know patents are even longer than that. What's the process like for somebody who wants to patent something?
So this is why we have to do clearances. Fortunately or unfortunately, the USPTO, the Patent and Trademark Office, are both very, very behind. And maybe they don't feel that it's a backlog, like it's an acceptable. But as you said, with trademarks, it's a good 9 months right now before you even hear from an examiner, before an examiner even looks at the application. With patents, it's 2 to 3 years in most cases.
Wow.
So we have to do upfront work in both cases. We have to at least do some clearance on the trademarks. And in the patents, it's an even more detailed. When people come to me with an idea and they say, I haven't seen it anywhere. I developed this, we should patent it. Not only is the preparation process, the drafting process takes months, takes time, and is costly. It's my most expensive service. You don't know for 2 or 3 years if you're going to get the patent, and you don't even know if you're infringing. And so some people would say, I'm going to go out. Okay, I filed the patent. I'm going to go out and start manufacturing, but maybe you shouldn't. So when you work with me, anyone that comes to me, I almost force it. It's very rare that I don't do what's called a clearance, a patent search and legal opinion. And so ahead of time, before we ever take pen to paper on a patent, we do this major worldwide search for number one, is it patentable? And I did 2 opinions today. I 2 different clients. One, I said we should patent it, and the other I said I shouldn't. So that's a 50-50 chance, right? So we look to see, is it patentable? I'm not going to take your money. We're not going to spend the time. And also, do you have a risk of infringement? Because remember, back to those litigation costs.
Right.
Yeah, so that, it's really important up front to know what you're dealing with, even if you think you know your market.
Now, what about what makes something either trademarkable or let's talk with trademark first, and then we'll go to patents. What makes it either trademarkable or not?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it would take a while to get, but I'll do this.
Oh, of course.
Answer.
I'm just asking you to share your entire legal history with us. So
yeah,
and we have another 5 minutes or so.
So both are the same in some ways, and then I'll tell you what's different. So in both cases, it's why I use the term protect your uniqueness. They need to be unique and novel. So they cannot be confusingly similar to something else that exists. So in the case of a brand, a trademark, there can't be something out there in the same arena that's sort of the same. Doesn't have to be exactly the same. It's the same with patents. If you have an invention, it may not be patentable. You may not be infringing somebody else, but it may not be patentable if it's obvious based on, even more than multiple patents put together. If I take, this blue and green widget and put it together, I've got this new purple widget or whatever it is. So in both cases, it's that novel uniqueness that makes the difference.
Okay. And you said it like takes 2 years before the patent office even like looks at your patent?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So we spend a lot of time with clients coming back, inventors coming back and saying, have you heard anything? Have you forgotten about me? Like, no, here's your status, nothing yet. The good news is the patent office has this, they call it first office action prediction. So you can go into a record and you can look and see how much longer you have.
Okay.
It doesn't mean it's right all the time, but at least it's something.
Yeah, for the anxious entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we've touched on this a little bit, but talk a little bit more about the advice that you would give to a new entrepreneur.
Yeah. So the way I like to look at it is a new entrepreneur knows they need a business plan. They know they need a financial plan. They know they need a marketing plan. But what many don't know is they needed a legal plan, an intellectual property plan too. And in fact, that's one of the things I will do with clients. Because you need to be aware that as the business grows, things are going to change. You might introduce a new training program that wasn't there before, and now you have to think about the name of that program. You may, and the materials that go with it. You may have an aha moment that changes, and you develop a new software, to make the way you do work or work with others better. So it's not a one and done when you work with an IP attorney. An entrepreneur needs to have an advisor, just like they have their marketing or their CPA advisors. And they need to know that as their business grows, their IP needs will grow with it.
That's a really good point. So what has you excited about the future for you and your business?
What has me excited is the more people I can help. When I started a few years ago, I considered, this a very small world of people I could help. And when I've realized how many people are in need of this IP advice and assistance, I've grown. My firm has grown. I've brought on people. I have staff and employees and specialists. And I love the fact that I can keep reaching out and helping more and more people. And when I see the smile on a client, or over the weekend, one of my clients posted on social media their trademark had just registered, or an inventor who realizes they now have a portfolio and they can go try to license, they're going to start working on licensing to the big guys. It's just, I like to see the success that comes from these people who came to me for help from the beginning. And that's kind of why I came up with the new tagline of turning your ideas into profits.
Oh, that's great. Is there any kind of small business owner that you would say, they don't really need me?
If they have their own IP attorney, I would say they don't. Although as attorneys share, because we do
Sure.
all have specialties, areas where, technologies or areas that we're better served. If somebody is so we'll go through, if somebody's right at the very beginning, they may not have the budget. They may, so then they should take advantage. It's not that they don't need me, but they should take advantage of all my free training and start getting knowledgeable so that when they do have the budget, then we can start talking. Because I do have people who come to me and they're totally lost. That's why I do put out a lot of free training. But they don't have the budget. So take advantage then of what you can learn. And that would probably be the one place where I can only go so far with somebody who's literally just starting out with no investor, with no investment.
But
and
basically,
then
go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, and then the big companies, the Fortune 500, I won't work with either.
Well, they typically have their own, or they hire their own, right?
Yeah, but I do, just to add to the kind of gamut of where firms like my own can help, is I do have clients where I'm their IP attorney, where they're a bigger firm, bigger company, but not gigantic, say in the 1,000 employees or less. And they need someone to handle their portfolio. They need someone to be there, but they don't have anyone in-house.
Okay. Yeah, that would be not the Fortune 100s, but maybe the Fortune 1000, the Fortune 2000, yeah. Right?
Yeah.
The smaller, but still fairly good sized companies.
Right.
So, but basically, if you have an idea, you should think about protecting it.
That was so well said.
And talk to Randi. So if people want to get in touch with you, if people have this idea that they realize, I've been using this branding and this logo and this wording for years now, and I've never protected it. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm everywhere. So if they want to talk to me, they just have to go to meetwithrandi.com and they can schedule an appointment directly. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Attorney Randi Karpinia. And I've got tons of, training there. I'm adding training on like a every other week basis. And then I also, at my website, sagacitylegal.com, I have a blog. So there's lots of ways to find me. I'm also on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and I post multiple times a week. So if people want to follow just to start getting an education. That's
great. And I often do this. I'll ask my guests, do you have somebody that you would think would be a great guest for the show here? An opportunity for a shout out.
Yeah, I would suggest, knowing who your audience seems to be, that Cicely Simpson would be a fabulous addition. She is the author of the book Pull Up Your Chair, and the founder and I'll say inventor, creator of the Chair Leadership Program. And she actually has her own podcast called Pull Up Your Chair as well, where she interviews people. So I think that she would be a great guest and someone that you really should get to know.
Great. Thanks for that. And just in closing, do you have one sort of thing that you would like to make sure that people remember out of this conversation?
I think it would be that as entrepreneurs, and I'm an entrepreneur too, we work really, really, really hard, and we want to make a difference, and we work to show the world we've made a difference. We need to protect that.
Okay. And that concludes our show. Thanks to our guest, Randi Karpinia. You've been listening to the Profit Minds podcast. This is your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch. Please visit www.profitminds.net for other episodes or to contact me. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. Thanks for listening. Have a grateful day.